Welcome back to another episode of Breaking Quiet. I'm your host, Marybeth Hill. I'm a person in long-term recovery, but I am also a woman who has successfully reintegrated society after incarceration. Breaking Quiet is a podcast created for women, by women, a place and a safe space to lift their voices so their stories can be told. I am so super excited today to have my friend Tori here. She is a person who's been in long-term recovery, and we don't have to really just get off into it. I'll let her tell her story. How are you doing, Tori?
Good. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Are you nervous?
Yes.
Okay, take a breath. It's going to be great.
Yes.
All right. So I love to really start from the very beginning. I think, if you've ever seen any of the episodes of Breaking Quiet, I love to really kind of share what life was like before we became addicted, because we talk about it all the time, like there was a person before the addiction happened. So kind of tell me, what did your childhood look like?
So I was born in Springfield, Illinois. I was raised in a small town. I remember a lot of bullying, like through the fifth through seventh grade, and also a lot of alcohol in my family. I was surrounded by alcohol. My family owned a bar, so it's pretty normal to like be in the bar on the weekends, drinking.
Yeah.
It was just a very normal thing for me. So at the age of 14, my parents who owned the bar, my dad passed away, and he died of cirrhosis of the liver. And I remember almost immediately that my mom packed us up and moved us to a new town. It's very odd, but like I understood. She said she did it because, sorry, I'm nervous. She said she did it because she couldn't be in that house. So she packed us up. We sold the bar. We moved to Litchfield, Illinois. There I did really good for a while. Went through eighth and ninth grade there. Became popular, became a cheerleader. I really liked the feel of that, especially when you came from bullying and, not understanding why kids are so mean.
And that's the truth, like that's something that I even look at in today's society. Like I'm literally going through a situation with my daughter right now, like especially amongst girls. Like I don't know what it is about young girls and the bullying aspect. And like one of the previous episodes I just did, we talked about that too. Like how as women, especially whenever we are in that early stage of our life and we're trying to figure out like who we are, like where do I fit in? And then we have these body dysmorphia because society tells us that we are supposed to look a certain way, and then we don't look that way. Like the impact that can have on our psyche as kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys move to the different town and you get there and you're the cheerleader.
Yeah.
Getting the attention.
I loved it. And I was probably like, this was 14 through 17, we'll say. But I started dabbling in cocaine, acid, shrooms, but it was a very normal thing to do. Like cheerleaders, we were all doing it. And I was invited to the parties, but it was very like, we do it on the weekends. We go to school through the week. Not a big deal.
Yeah. I think that was, how old are you?
I'm 44 now.
Right. So like we're all in the same age gap. And so I think that was just the norm for us as kids. Like I make this joke, which is really not a joke, but I'm like, as a kid, if I wasn't in the field dying of alcohol poisoning, like where were you? Because that's what we did, like never ever understanding as these young kids that the decisions that we were making at that young age were going to change the trajectory of our lives. Yeah. So you were just partying on the weekends, doing the thing.
Yeah. So at 17, I had found out I was part of a huge family secret. And it changed my life completely for years to come, and everybody knew but me. And also at the time, I was raised knowing her as my niece. She didn't know either, but I found out that I was adopted by my grandparents. So the people who was raising me was my grandparents, and then that my biological sister, or the woman I known as my sister, was biological my mother. And that kind of threw me, man.
Absolutely.
The first thing I thought when I found out the truth in that was that's what the kids was bullying me about. Like they would tell me, that's not your parents, that's your grandparents, and that's really your mom. That ain't your sister. Why are you lying? You're a liar. And I'm like, what? So I would go home to my parents and say, what's going on? Like crying, just not wanting to go to school. I'm like, these people are saying this. my parents would just brush it off and say, no, it's fine. That's not the truth. So I had no reason not to believe.
Well, absolutely. You grew up with these people. Yeah, your whole life you grow up with these people. They're your earliest childhood, memories. These are who you know as your mom and dad. Did they ever tell you why they didn't tell you?
So yeah, when I was ready to listen, but it took a long time, like years of
Yeah.
me getting into my mess, and to really, it took the death of my so now at this point she's my grandma. It took her dying for me to really want to kind of hear and accept kind of why they did what they did.
Yeah,
So
we don't. I say this, and I know it's not, I say this all the time, and it's not to make excuses for that generation, but like that seems to be a common denominator of like, that older generation, they just were doing the best with what they could at the time. Like nobody is born into this world unless you are working specifically in the mental health field. You know what I mean? Like have any knowledge of what mental health is or like the impact that childhood adverse experiences can have on somebody as they grow up. Like they don't have any idea what that does to a child's psyche, and so they were doing what they had, doing what they could with what they had at the time, but not even realizing that, that's damaging,
So, and to kind of go into that, so at the time, my biological mom was on drugs, which I knew that, but it was my sister that was
Yeah.
on drugs,
Yeah.
and she was kind of she had it rough. My grandparents were really just trying to protect me from that. Um, and towards the end, they all knew that they had went about this wrong, but by the time it was just too late.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So the damage had been done, and it was about me really being able to process that and accept it. So.
Yeah. So you get out of high school, and then what does life look like for Tori after high school?
So at 17, right after I found out, I immediately quit school. Um, I felt a lot of guilt and shame, or a lot of shame, I guess. Like I didn't want to tell anybody this, like, that this is what it is and that my family had lied to me for so many years. So now I'm starting to find that like the men in my life who is my brothers are now my uncles. It was tragic.
It really is, though, if you think about that. Like your whole world was just like
Yeah.
flipped,
Yeah.
and everything that you knew to be the truth in your life
Yeah.
was a lie.
Well, and I also felt like I didn't know who I was then either.
Yeah.
I'm like, who am I? I don't know any of these people around me. Like everybody is somebody different now. And so it got really weird. Like I didn't want to have anything to do with anybody.
And not only that, though, now you have no kind of trust in these people because they've lied to you your whole entire life.
The betrayal was severe.
Yeah.
And I remember then I just got angry. The day that I found out, or like within the week, I discovered methamphetamine, and I remember doing it for the first time and thinking, this is how I'm going to get through this. Like there is a way.
Yeah.
And I was okay with it completely. It originally sent me to the psych ward. So I was having all these thoughts. I wanted to die. Like I did. I wanted to die. And I went to my now grandma and I said, I'm having some really crazy thoughts. Like I can't handle this. Something's got to give. So her and my now uncle take me to the hospital, and I'm admitted to the psych ward for like a 24-hour evaluation. I remember I was scared to death to stay in a place like that, but the doctor comes in and it's like, "Oh, we're gonna release you." And I thought, that can't be good. Not with like what was going on in my head.
Absolutely.
So
But that's what they do.
yeah, but I was also excited because I thought, I'm gonna go get high. Like I knew what I was gonna do, but I already had it planned.
Yeah.
Um, and so he released me to like outpatient with a bunch of meds. The outpatient never started. I never begun treatment. I immediately found methamphetamine. That's where my spiral really began. So
Are you still living in Illinois at this time?
no, so I live in Little Rock now.
No, at this time, whenever all this was happening, you were still in Illinois?
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah. How did you eventually, so kind of give me a timeline. So that's like around 17, 18, and then we go into our early 20s, and then we're just ripping and running.
Yeah, so my anger, I was so mad I just wanted to hurt people. I had stole a bunch of my grandma's checks, okay, and I forged $5,000 worth of her checks. She called me crying and she says, they're gonna arrest me if I don't press charges on you. And I said, okay, cool, press charges. I was just angry. it's so sad to think about. I wish I would have handled that situation different, but what do you do
Oh
when
yeah, when you're young, like so now like actually being in recovery and working in the field for so long and then doing the work on myself, like we know that anger is a secondary emotion. Like, you had so many other emotions going on inside of you, but because we don't know how to express those things as a young woman, like we're just raging.
and I didn't give myself the opportunity. I think there was probably a part there where I could have gotten some help, but I chose not to because all I wanted to do is I became very vindictive. So I just wanted to hurt my grandma. I didn't want nothing to do with now my biological mother. Um, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you're stealing so that she pressed charges against you for the
Yeah.
checks?
So and I had her come get me and I went and turned myself in on it because, you know, as much as I had this anger, I still love this woman and I knew
Yeah,
she'd
absolutely.
done for me. She'd given me everything I ever wanted, and a good life. And as much as I knew that, I just still couldn't get through the anger part of it. I turned myself in. I got like 2 years probation, which eventually turned to prison time because I couldn't stay clean. I couldn't, and I was catching more charges. I caught a DUI within that time period too.
We talk about this a lot, like how broken the judicial system really is. Like, these people, and I get it, right? Like, if you're not versed in what addiction looks like and, the signs and the things to see, and then you have these probation and parole officers who have these caseloads that are like huge, right? They have this one person who's supposed to be responsible for 50 or more people, like it's easy to slip through the cracks, and so like that's why I spend so much time like advocating for like having peer support inside those settings because people need those resources, and we can't expect these people to just come into these jobs with compassion in a perfect world, right? Like there would be law with compassion, but let's be realistic that you just have the law most of the time, and so I don't know how many people in my life I have watched, literally turn like a 2-year probation, where they could have just completed it, but because they couldn't stay clean, will end up going to prison years later. How many years later was it when you went to prison for that eventually?
Oh man, that was 25 years ago. So I'm not exactly sure. But I know that the probation officer gave me plenty of opportunities to try to make good.
Yeah,
And then it was just like charge after charge. I think I had caught a couple more charges after that.
yeah.
So
So how long was that prison sentence that you went?
so 1 year. And in Illinois you do 50% of your sentence. And then they give like sets of what they call 90s. So I ended up doing 6 months on that bit.
Okay.
Um
You got out.
I got out and immediately I met a man and you know, ultimately he ended up becoming being very violent and there was a lot of sexual assault that was involved. He was, about killed me a couple different times,
Yeah.
but he also had the pocket full of money and the pocket full of drugs that I was after. And I stayed because of that reason.
Isn't that crazy? Like I think I look back in my life, like I was just talking about this with Crystal, but I look back in my life, like the predicaments and the situations that I put myself in, like, and the things that I was willing to accept behind ultimately the drugs,
Yeah.
like the things that like I tortured myself, I literally let someone degrade me in every aspect of my life in order to just, and it was like I was addicted to the relationship just like I was, the substances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
he knew why I was there. He would hold it over my head. Things would go south and he would like beat me up or he had tied me with an extension cord and locked me in a room before and then he would coddle me with a bunch of drugs and I would be okay. I'm like, "Oh, it's okay. It's
yeah.
okay." So it is wild to think about situations I put myself in. That's why I know that I really shouldn't be sitting here today.
Absolutely. None of us should. You know what I mean? If you really think back like on the things like we did in our lives, and it is only by the grace of God that I'm sitting here today and I'm alive to tell it because so many times in my life, either he should have took me out, trying to kill myself should have took me out, or just the excessive drug use should have took me out. And so it's like I know my purpose is bigger, like your purpose is bigger, so you're with him. How did that relationship end?
Um, Man, I guess originally or eventually I just got tired. There was a time I put a order of protection on him. I remember him coming around again and we had had a couple encounters, but I knew that he was going to end up killing me. Like, I knew that
Yeah.
my mom was crying to me, like, please, you have to get away from him. He would black my eyes and, um, broken ribs or cracked ribs.
Yeah.
So I knew. So eventually there was a order of protection put on him. I think that was in like '06 is what I want to say.
And you were able to get away.
And I was able to get away. I went to Charleston, Illinois after that and went to rehab because I was bad. It was like I was like 89 pounds, soaking wet, sunken, not healthy. So I went there for a short period and I couldn't, I let go of the drugs, but I was still drinking and, you know, socially acceptable. So I'm like,
Yeah, society always says that, right? Like,
I have a problem with alcohol.
absolutely.
So I'd already had a DUI at,
Yeah, that's the lies that we tell ourselves. But society glamorizes it, like you look and like that's the thing, like society glamorizes the use of alcohol. Like it's okay. This is acceptable because it's not against the law. You could purchase it on every corner. Everywhere you turn around, there's there's a liquor store. I almost called it an alcohol store. There's a liquor, whatever, same thing, but there's a liquor store on every corner, and that's just this social norm.
yeah. Well, every time I've returned to use, every time it started with alcohol. So it took me a long time to accept that. But,
Yeah.
that's when the true change came for me.
Yeah.
You know.
So you got out of that, you returned to use, and then how long was it were you just drinking before it would just right back to where it was?
Yeah, not very long at all. It never was. I ended up getting kicked out of where I was living for drinking and acting a donkey. I went home to my mom, and she was happy about that because she was still trying to repair
Mhm.
uh, everything that was broken. She wanted to try to make things right. And as much as at the time, I didn't respect it, as much as I respected that, I wasn't trying to hear it either.
Yeah.
Um, but so I lived with her, and then I met another man.
It's my story too. It's like I'm a sucker for relationships. I think that I look back now, now that I've done the work on myself, like I had mommy issues and I had daddy issues. And so that manifested in my life and I didn't have a preference. You know what I mean? And so,
Help me.
yeah, right. Like I didn't care.
Crap, I just,
Exactly. Like I didn't care if it was a man or a woman, like if you were willing to show me the attention or the love that I was looking for, like I was okay with it.
yeah.
So you met him. But yeah.
So I met him. So to back up a little bit, in Charleston, I was there. I got married. So I met a man prior to the man I'm getting ready to marry. We was married for 6 months and then ended up getting a divorce because our relationship was fueled by complete alcohol.
Yeah.
And he was a pretty good guy actually, but it was just, we were just drunks. Like literally, I had caught another DUI during that time. When I come back from Charleston. So that's when I meet David, who then I marry. And then I had a little girl. And then in 2007, so she was born in 2007. In 2008, we got into a car wreck, me and my now husband. And I became addicted to opioids. I broke my shoulder. He'd hurt himself falling off of a roof one time. He'd already kind of been on pills, but then it made it worse when we got into the wreck. So now he's on like Oxycontin and all the heavier stuff.
Yeah.
In 2009, I found out I was pregnant again and we had a little boy. I'd used through my whole pregnancy. I'd used pills through my whole pregnancy. But it was okay because my doctor was prescribing them, even though I'd almost eat them within like a few days of having them and then be sick trying to buy, street pills for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And that went on for a while. After my son was born, I found a needle hanging out of my arm. It wasn't long after he was born that I shot up for the first time because the doctor wanted to take me off the pills now.
And that's how it always happens. I can remember when I first started in my addiction, like I would tell myself, I will only do these drugs. And then eventually I would do the ones I said I would never do. And then I would only do these drugs this way, and like I would tell myself. And then so eventually then I started doing them the way I said I never would do them. And I became an intravenous user. And it was just like, it's progressive, you know what I mean? And so, and then before you know it, here I am all the way in it, with the needle in my arm too, and not even realizing like, the impact that it was having on my life. Like I'll never forget the first time I got high like that. Like it took a hold of me. It was like the devil had entered my body, and I was right.
Different.
Yeah. And I was like, I was morphed by something else. Like it wasn't me anymore. You know, I was like a monster. And like no matter what I did in my life and everything that I touched in my life, and it turned to crap. You know what I mean? Like it just, and I was so gone in my addiction, like I couldn't even see it. You know, like I thought that I was maintaining, and I thought that I had it together, and I didn't. You know, I was tearing my whole life apart. So you're eventually now you're using intravenously.
Yeah.
Okay, where are the kids at?
They're with us still, but I was only good when I had my fix. I wasn't. I would lay on the couch sick most of the time, so I knew it was like it was starting to take a toll on me. I'm like, you have to do something different.
Yeah,
You have to do something different. Um, and I'd missed the part. So in 2007, my grandma had died,
yeah,
and I was kind of still struggling with that because the shame of how I treated her, from the whole secret part of it, it damn near killed me,
yeah,
honestly. The shame of how I treated her because I just did whatever I could to hurt her. But anyway, so I called my now aunt and I'm telling her, I'm like, listen, it's bad. And she knew it. She knew that it was pretty bad. So I had gotten put on Suboxone and even was going to the methadone clinic, but I did good for about 18 months. And I just fell right back off, I was getting so much methadone, it was making me nod out, or selling it, you know.
yeah. I have a I have a very strong opinion behind the methadone clinic. Um, you know, and again, this is I believe that MAT services, if they are used correctly, can be very beneficial for somebody in early recovery. I have a problem. I'll just say it. I have a problem with these providers who keep people on these medicated assistant treatments, and then they're upping their doses. And you're talking about years later in recovery, they're still on these same medicines. Like as an addict, as somebody who is, and I was in addiction for 20 years, I have a very strong belief that these medications should be used for a short period of time, like 6 months to a year. And then in that 6 months to a year, there should be a taper, so that a person can live and sustain successfully for the rest of their life. You look at statistics with medicated assistant treatment. Now they have all these lawsuits about how Suboxone is eating your teeth out. You know what I mean? Like the harm, yeah, like the harm that it eventually, the long extended periods of use that after using it for years and years, is not, definitely, it doesn't outweigh the good. You know what I mean? And so I try to keep my peace on that, because I've seen it work wonders, but like you were just saying, like, you don't know how many people that I know who have been to the methadone clinic who, um, one thing in particular is like, I know somebody who recently had a reoccurrence, and she went back to the clinic and let them know, hey, I had a reoccurrence, and they just upped her methadone. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of sense does that make? Like, she is literally testing positive for fentanyl, and you just gave her more to get her. I mean, and let's be realistic, because you've taken the methadone,
Yeah.
it changes the way you feel.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was high and I was trying to get that nod, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like, I wanted that nod.
yeah,
And the more I would sell them that dream of all these things that I really wasn't even experiencing at first, yes.
yeah, yeah,
But after I started taking the medicine, it really actually started to help. But then when I seen I could really get high off of it,
yeah,
like then, I'm like telling them exactly what I had to get whatever I wanted.
right.
So
And they listen, and
they listen. Yeah.
and they just give it to you. And I'm like, what is happening? Yeah. So you were on the clinic for a little while.
Yeah, I did the methadone clinic for a very short period until I got into the Suboxone clinic. Did the Suboxone, and I did really good for a while. I had my kids. I was working. I was kind of productive for the most part, and then I started drinking again. I could never go very, very long without drinking. I just always trying to fill that void.
Yeah, because there's a difference, right? Like there's a difference whenever, like in those times, in those periods in your life, whenever you experienced a little bit of abstinence, like you weren't involved in recovery, right? Like, right. I tell people that all the time. I'm like, you can white knuckle it. Now let me just say this. There are some people in life, and I've seen them, who quit using substances, who can drink successfully, or who can just not use substances and not do recovery, and they can live their lives normally. But for the majority of us,
Yeah.
that is not the case. You know what I mean? Like we have to be involved, immersed in recovery, because that's where our accountability comes from. Like you leave me to my own devices with nobody checking in on me, nobody relying on, and Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like, there's no telling what I'm gonna be doing, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nobody watching, and there's nobody telling me, like, calling me on my bullcrap, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just off doing my own thing,
Yeah.
so you start drinking again.
Yeah, I started drinking again, and, you know, I became at one time, like, I've been in, obviously, a domestic violent relationship,
Mhm.
but then there was a time that I was, like, became more of the abuser than, the person experiencing the abuse. Um, I didn't realize that till much later, but so where are we at? The methadone clinic.
And then you started drinking. You said you had your kids for just a little while, things
Okay.
were good.
So, yeah, when I started drinking again, then originally or eventually I started, taking pills again, and I was selling my Suboxone to get high. My husband was kinda in and out of jail all the time, so he wasn't around very much, and I remember calling my sister, and I was just desperate. Like, I knew something had to give because, I didn't wanna play with them, like, they were eating and stuff, but I would do the bare minimum, and I hated that. I hated who I was because of that, but
Yeah,
it was like I just didn't have the strength within me.
right.
Um so I call her and she's like, "Pack up some bags for them. I'm gonna come get them, and you need to get your stuff together." Like, seriously. And I'm like, "Okay." And I'm thinking, "Okay, at least I don't have to worry about them," because I would take them to the city with me to get dope. I would had a couple drinks and put them in the car. That's not something I'm proud of, but that is
It
just my
happens.
truth.
Yeah, yeah, it
That is
happens.
my truth. And I knew they deserved better, and my aunt, she loved my kids, and I knew that they would be okay, so I'll never forget pulling in that parking lot and putting those kids in that truck and watching her drive away, and I'm thinking, "Are you gonna be able to really do this?" Like, I had no faith in myself, like, I don't even think I really had a desire to want to stop because I was so scared of the sickness, right? I was so scared of going through the dope
Yeah,
part of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what stops a lot of people who are addicted to opiates, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think that's what the one factor that stops them from finding recovery is because they don't wanna feel the sickness.
Yeah.
But, I'm one of those people, and I was very grateful to have a bunch of old school, heads in my life when I got into recovery who, like, I'm like, "You gotta feel that shit." You know what I mean? Like, go through it and feel it because that's a firm reminder of how you don't ever wanna feel again,
Yes.
you know?
I agree with that completely.
Like, sometimes we gotta feel it. Like, for me anyway, like, I had to feel those consequences in my life, you know what I mean? Like, I had to feel it so that I can remember I don't ever wanna feel like that again. Like, those moments of, like, complete despair and utter brokenness. Like, like those times when I thought I was so broken that I wasn't gonna come back, but, like, now looking back on it, it's like I can use that as motivation in my life to make me never wanna go back there again.
Absolutely, and I do definitely.
So she got the kids, and then what
So
happened
she
after
got the
that?
kids, and obviously in her head, I'm getting my stuff together. Might be a month or two, and maybe I can get them back. And I think I lasted just a few months before I ended up in jail on some pretty hefty charges. I ended up going away for 3.5 years that time, flat, in the Illinois Department of Corrections. And as good as that was for me, because it got me off the heroin, um, man, I got back out and did the same thing, but this time it wasn't heroin. I went back to the meth because in my head, I'm like, "I'll never do heroin again,"
Yeah.
and I never have. Thank you, Jesus. But,
Yeah.
I did get back on the meth. So, and I would get back to my kid's life a little bit. I'd get out of prison and start doing good and, like, go to Phoenix House or wherever and do good for a while, and then I'd disappoint them again, you know?
Yeah. Whenever you got out of prison that time, like, let me ask you this, is I'm always curious to know. So that prison was Illinois. You went to that time too. So, did they provide any kind of services like whenever you left, like, or was it kind of just like a one and done release? Now you got to report to parole.
Uh, you get your first visit by your parole officer. It's a home visit. That's the only thing you get from them.
Yeah, like I swear, like I think about this, and I know this is not realistic because well, I don't know about Illinois, but if you look at Arkansas's incarceration rate, like right now, there's around 27,000 people who are incarcerated in Arkansas, and of course, obviously they don't all get out at one time, but like I was. I'll say this. I was very fortunate enough to go to the feds, and the feds structure is a lot different than it is in the state prisons. Like whenever you go to federal prison, they literally make you go to a halfway house. You know what I mean? And if you don't go to a halfway house, like if you go straight to home confinement, they still make you have an ankle monitor on. Like it's still like, and there's still this accountability. You know what I mean? And I wish that the states especially Arkansas, I wish that the state did something like that. I wish that everybody who got out of state prison had to get out and be released into programming, you know what I mean? Or like, especially if they're addicts, you know what I mean? But not only that though, take the whole addict component out of it. The realization is, the reality is that most people who are incarcerated in Arkansas are repeat offenders. You know what I mean? They've been in the system multiple times. Why would we not have a system to where they were able to release like into a reentry program that would give them like the ability to get a job, save some money?
Adult life.
Yes, learn the adult life skills, things like basic hygiene. You would be surprised how many people inside of prison do not even know basic hygiene, like learn parenting classes, you know what I mean? Learn how to write a resume, learn how, all the things that are like society thinks we should just know, but most of these people don't. But where it's a safe place to learn them so that they can be productive members of society.
Yeah. I have to remind people all the time, that's something that was put on my heart that I'm aware of. Some people haven't been raised the same, so they don't have the experience of like, I was a house manager for an organization, and the girls would complain like, "Can you believe she does that?" I'm like, "Well, you never know where she came from.
Yeah.
We have to remember where people came from.
Yeah.
Not everybody's had that training or that and grown up with a mother or a father."
Right. And a lot of people don't understand that people who have been victims of sexual assault, like, that's like a common thing is that they don't shower. You know what I mean? Like if you can make yourself undesirable, it makes a man not want to touch you, like people, and they do it, subconsciously, not even realizing that they're doing it. I have to tell people that all the time. I'm like, we have to be mindful of what somebody's life might have looked like before they came in there. So you get out of prison and then what happens?
So I immediately started drinking. I mean, I was drunk before my parole officer even showed up to the house. They come within like 72 hours, I think, and I'd already been drinking. But he came and went, and it wasn't long. I'm off and running again. So that's like in 2015, I guess. And then 2017, I came to Arkansas. So I didn't meet a guy. I knew the guy from my childhood, and he calls me and asks me what I'm doing. And at the time, I'm kind of like couch surfing, homeless, just doing whatever I have to do, selling dope out of the laundromat because it's warm in there, And
Yeah.
you're like selling dope out of the laundromat. I thought that was like the coolest thing. And he's like, "Let me get you away from here and let me help you to start your life over." I'm like, "Yes, fix me,"
Yeah.
He's like, "I've loved you for a long time." And then I was sold. I'm like, "Yes, come on, love me. Let's go to
Yeah.
Arkansas. I'm going to start all over." And in the meantime, my sister's like, "Are you going to get your shit together?"
Yeah.
And no, I didn't, and that's what's so sad. So I come to Little Rock. We were here for 3 weeks and arrested. I spent 90 days in the Yale County Detention Center for possession of a stolen vehicle and possession of drugs. I would get probation again, knowing that I wasn't going to manage this probation.
Yeah.
That turned into a prison sentence here. And
How long were you down that time?
so when I went to prison for the first time in ADC, I think I only did like 8 months, not very long. And I tried to go into like the Think Legacy program and try to stay out of the way of all the riffraff that goes on in prison. I got out and I went to Phoenix House. And I think that's where I had first heard your testimony.
Yeah, that's where we first met.
Yeah. And reoccurrence, again, drinking. I just knew I was going to find a way to like handle my drinking, like to control how I was when I was drinking. It was important to me, but it took me a lot of experience to realize that I cannot drink.
Yeah.
So 2022, I'm sorry, April of 2022, I was arrested in Arkansas. I had major warrants, fugitive felony warrants, wanted, they took me to the Garland County Detention Center. I knew that something had to change. Like when I was out there ripping and running and kind of couch surfing and homeless here in Arkansas, I just remember thinking like, if I could just, have somebody show me how to do this, just feeling so lost of like, I want to get sober, but how do I do that? What does it look like? And where do I start? And all the things. But this last time when I got arrested, I went into the jail and I just kept thinking, you just have to keep doing something different, right? So I did a 14-day quarantine. I'll never forget when they put me in that cell. I dropped to my knees and I just cried out. And it was like I was mourning my addiction. Like I
Absolutely.
was scared to death to like have to face myself of all of these things, right? Still haven't even met up with my kids, like I would call and then go away. Like, so I'm trying to, I want to right all my wrongs. That was some hard 14 days right there of just straight being able to think and deal with all the stuff that you've done made a mess of.
Yeah.
I got out and I immediately went to J-Pod, which is a substance abuse pod. And I spent the next several months there. I met my first peer support specialist there who changed my life. I mean, honestly, when I met her, I remember thinking, so she starts saying that, I have a felony, like I used to be a drug. And I was like, what? Hold on. How'd you get this job?
Yeah.
She said, I'm a peer support specialist. And I'm like, I'd never heard of it.
Yeah.
And I was baffled. I said, oh, God, Amy Bozeman, I love her to death. I said, I want to do what you do. She said, and you can. And her and Marty Haynes just both loved on me and supported me through my stay there and gave me the tools that I needed to kind of fend for myself for the most part, like tools to get sober and to stay sober.
Dude, that's the therapeutic value for real. Like, people don't understand, like, how important that is. Like, I think about that, like, maybe even as a kid, like, if I would have had somebody, like, so, like, that's one of the things I do a lot is I speak in a lot of different high schools and school districts. And I think back, like, what would have that have looked like if I had somebody that I could look at who told me, like, hey, I know that your life is a mess because my life used to be a mess too. Like, my parents have been, like, I love going back to the kids because just to see them look at me and be like, I'm not alone, but like, that's what I mean. Like, that's where I say this all the time. Peer support should be in every jail in the nation. There should be somebody with lived experience in every pod, in every jail, in every city across the nation.
That'd be amazing. I mean, honestly.
I mean, they should be everywhere. They should be in DHS. They should be working with women and children. You know what I mean? Like, they should be everywhere because how many times have we heard, like, that saved my life? Like, just hearing somebody say, like, hey, I've been through what you've been through. And that gave you that hope shot. You know what I mean? It literally, her being in that jail with a felony, working there,
Yeah,
made you realize, like, that you don't have to keep living like this and you could do something different.
absolutely. And not only that, then it was like the aftercare. So she kept up with me. So originally I became the mentor of the pod, which meant something to me. Like I finally felt like I was starting to give back instead of being this taker,
Yeah.
and I could tell some of the girls started to kind of look up to like where I was. I'd had girls share that with me. And I'm like, okay, like I definitely just gonna keep choosing something different no matter what. If I'm thinking left, I'm gonna go right.
Yeah.
I ended up getting a 5 years prison term, and I went down and did 13 months. So when I got out, I went to the Phoenix house. That's like my stomping ground.
Yeah.
I did 60 days there and graduated the program there, and I went to freshly renewed transitional living.
Yeah.
There I spent 16 months altogether there. Or I did 10 months in Kimfrey, and then I transitioned and became a house manager and did 16 months as a house manager. And my life had slowly just started to change. I started going to meetings. When I first started, I was going to 3 to 5 meetings a week.
Yeah.
Not just because I had to, but because
You wanted to. Yeah.
it was working for me. And then when I really started to apply the steps to my life, then that kind of taught me how to act almost like those steps. Like it was pretty rewarding.
I know there's some people who like literally like will knock 12-step fellowships and stuff. And I'm like, whatever, like that, it literally changed my life. Like, I almost wish even normal people could work the 12 steps because it's not even about the drugs and alcohol. It's just about looking at the part you play in your life and take accountability for it. Like, like I think 12-step fellowships and I have been a part of multiple different 12-step fellowships throughout the time of my recovery because, as you get some time under your belt and you realize like, I need different areas in my life, right? Like I need my workout, I need CrossFit, like I need Jesus, I need church, you know what I mean? And I have my 12-step fellowships that I go to and stuff. Like I realize like I can learn something from every bit of it. Like there is not just one pathway to recovery. Like and I you'll get a lot of the old timers who are like, this is our only way. And I'm like, yeah, maybe for you, you know what I mean? But there is a way for everybody. It may not look the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I still apply the steps to my life today. I don't go to very many meetings. I'm more self-directed today. But that just is what works for
that works for you.
But definitely the steps gave me mindfulness,
Yeah.
not just about myself and awareness about myself, but about other people.
Yeah. So what does that relationship look like with your kids today?
Wow. So when I got out this last time, the first thing I did is reach out to him because I knew something was going to be different, but I knew I wasn't going to talk about it. I was going to be about it. My daughter was like, I don't know, she was very standoffish, but today we have a great relationship. We call, text, and video all the time. I go see them in Illinois. I take the train down there. They're getting ready to come see me.
I love that.
Yes, on the 25th of this month. So, yeah. My sister, she didn't talk to me for 10 years because of my addiction. We have the greatest relationship. She's the one driving down here to see me, her and my nephew and my mom. My mom's sober. She's been sober a year and a half.
Good.
Yes, I know.
I love that.
When she called me and my sister called me. She was deep in her addiction, and I went down there and helped her get her into rehab, and that was probably one of the most
Full circle moments. Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
And she's doing great. She lives in transitional housing in Illinois, and we talk as much as we can. So, and there's still some repairs there or whatever,
Absolutely.
but
We spent decades destroying our lives. That's what I always tell people who come into early recovery, like it takes years. Like I have it over 8 years, and I promise you I'm still repairing relationships, like that. And it's not even so much that, it's just life on life's terms. You know what I mean? Like it's always going to be a constant repair and working on it and bettering myself and bettering those relationships. So, you have to be realistic with that. So Tori, there's one thing that I ask everybody at the end of the podcast. And it is, what is something that you want to leave the listeners with? Maybe it's somebody that's in early recovery. Maybe it's somebody like you who has had, multiple reoccurrences in your recovery. Like what is something that if they're listening today that you would like to tell them?
oh my God, so many things go through my head, but I would say just don't give up. Like, don't give up before the miracle happens, because if you stay, and just get through those moments, and I know I sit and say that as I think how many times I return to use. But if you can just stick it out, man, and there's help out there for sure.
Absolutely. As long as you have breath in your lungs, you still have there's another opportunity to do something different.
Fall, just dust yourself back off, get up, dust yourself off, and try again.
Yeah. Thank you, friend. I'm so excited that you got to come on the podcast. I know you did
Oh
amazing.
my God, I'm so nervous.
No, you did so good. I just want to let you guys know that we are streaming on all major platforms. Anywhere that you can listen to a podcast, we are there. If you are not subscribed, go to our YouTube channel, Long Term, a Podcast in Recovery, and subscribe today. We'll see you next time.